Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. Well, I take it you survived the July 4th holiday. Did you have a good holiday?
I did. It was very, very quiet. With most of like I said, all of our kids had been there earlier, and we took a family vacation with all the kids and grandkids in early June. So it was just kind of a nice, quiet 4th of July where we just didn't really do a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this was the first year that the city departed from its usual July 1st to 4th fireworks sales and use period, expanded a couple of days from June 28th to sales through the 4th, usage through the 5th.
Right.
Last fall, if I remember right, the vote was like 5-2. There were some differences as to whether or not you should go that way, but one of the other things was maybe looking at it, taking another look at it after you've tried it for a year. Yeah,
I think certainly I've had some feedback, and I think, one of the things that doesn't make life easy is that you look around and, 15 miles away, you've got people selling fireworks starting on June 25th. And so, the request really came from the folks that were selling fireworks, and most of them are for good causes, and that they believe they were, losing out on some sales to surrounding areas anyway. And so it did pass. I think that anytime at least you have a newer ordinance that passed, I think in this case we certainly should review that. Mm-hmm. And, we've kind of worked around and moved our work sessions to 6 o'clock on Mondays before the council meetings. And so, I think we're going to probably spend the work session on August 21st at 6 p.m. on the ordinance. Mm-hmm. I think we need to review it. I think we need to take a look and say, how did the 5th work? I think that's where I've gotten most of the feedback is that, there are cases where you do have to take into consideration there's some animals that don't like fireworks and are scared of fireworks, and that extended period, I think the people I had feedback from were very concerned about a number of issues that were affecting people. So I think we'll take a look at that. Mm-hmm. There will be changes. Again, it's up to the council folks, but I think we should take a look at it. I think one of the things that also compounded the issue this year was the weather a little bit, because I do know a number of people were planning on shooting off on the 4th, and then the good Lord gave us our own fireworks show for quite some time, and I was even amazed at the number of people that were shooting fireworks off in the rainstorm, but that wouldn't have been me. So, I think that compounded things for this first year, so we have to also take that factor in. But it is certainly that we're going to have a discussion on August 21st during that work session at 6 p.m.
Did you get a lot of phone calls, emails personally, and how about council members from what?
I've heard from a couple of council members that have had some emails, phone calls. I've had a couple of phone calls. We also have some people that probably don't know how or don't know who to reach out to. And so, if you have feedback on the fireworks, pro or con, certainly go to the city webpage and find your councilman for your ward and relay your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. I suppose maybe one of the concerns going into a longer sales and use period was dry conditions and the potential for fires. It's probably helped out a little bit by some rain over the holiday weekend, because according to the fire department, other than a dumpster fire late last night, which was probably somebody discarding some fireworks, there really weren't any problems.
No, there weren't. I mean, that's something I think also got to take into consideration. Mm-hmm. And I think, we just have to take an overall look. And I do know it was the ordinance that passed, but it wasn't unanimous. And so it's time to go back and take a look at that. And August 21st, that work session is the opportunity for us to take a look and decide, do we amend the ordinance? Do we keep the ordinance? What steps do we take?
One of the things, the curfew, the cutoff period for various nights, anywhere from 10 p.m. to just before midnight. How did you see it in terms of noise complaints, things like that? Were there very many of those called in? Because you look at the difference in times there, maybe got a little bit confusing for people. But.
Yeah, I think there was. I think there was a number of complaints that happened after, particularly, I think, last night it was supposed to be done by 10. Mm-hmm. I think there were a number of folks that were concerned that it was certainly not done by 10 and a little closer to midnight. And, people work and would like to have their sleep. So, I think one of the things that is hard to understand is that at night the police department's busy, and trying to track down everybody that shoots fireworks off in that violation time frame is tough to do.
Yeah.
So you have to prioritize your calls, and it's one of those things that we hope the citizens would abide by the time constraints, but some don't. And I think that even happened on the 4th as people were trying to do it in between the thunderstorm and then after the thunderstorm because, it's the only time they have their family together. Yeah. And so I think there was a lot of factors there that caused maybe a little more issues than we normally see on the 4th of July. But rest assured, I think we'll have a good discussion on August 21st.
Well, if there's one bright side to it, all the nonprofits that operate stands for good causes, having that little extra sales period, it'd be kind of nice to see how much difference that made, if it made any difference at all.
I think that's something, and I don't know how we'll be able to get that factored number, but if it's just a matter of spreading the sales out over an extra 2 days, then it's probably not even worth it, because why would you want to pay the extra labor? Yeah. But if indeed you make enough to cover your labor costs and have more for your nonprofit organization, then it's certainly worth looking at.
And in some cases, stands rely on kind of volunteers signing up too, as far as the labor. So maybe it wasn't a factor for them. Maybe it was if they had to hire people. So,
yeah, that's so. It seems like it's a simple little thing, but it's a lot bigger than that. And so we're going to have to, like I said, we'll have a great discussion, and I hope some nonprofits will kind of share in general whether they felt they liked it or they didn't like it.
Never knew fireworks could be so complicated.
Oh, I know, you think about it, just a little thing there. It's almost more complicated than how they got the timing that it works and blows up the way they do.
Yeah. Just don't want to get into postponing Halloween or something like that. That's even worse yet. Trust me, from way long ago.
I remember those days because I had trick-or-treaters at that age, and it was almost unheard of that you would cancel Halloween. But it was bad. It was not a good evening to do that.
Hopefully former Mayor Marstad isn't listening to me, because that was during his term, so we always kind of joke about that a little bit sometimes. So, one of the projects going on in East Beatrice, the trail connection between, I think, 24th and 26th, is that right? Somewhere in that area there. Yep. Noticed the other day the path was all dug out. Didn't know if they'd poured yet. I hadn't been by there yesterday.
They hadn't poured as of July 4th. I was not past there today, so they had, but it didn't look like they had the forms maybe set up yet. Yeah. So, but they'll be pouring soon. They're making really good progress, and that little stretch really connects the complete trail. So I think that's really going to be nice, not only for citizens, but also, things out there by the school. So it gives you a nice walking path along there. Yeah,
anybody who lives in the area of what the Baumgar store out there, you got a quick way to jump on the trail there with your bike and get to the rest of the ring that goes around the town.
Now it connects, and that was kind of always our goal. It's kind of funny how that stretch there didn't really fit into the money that we got for the trail, and so that one came from our public funds.
And you didn't have a sidewalk on the other side of the highway too, so that was the problem there. So.
That is right. So now it's a lot safer. That's going to be good. I mean, one of the things that it does take money to keep the trails up, but it is an amenity that Beatrice can be very proud of.
They sure get a lot of use. I've been, especially early mornings when it gets hot like this. You see a lot of early morning or early evening use, especially on the trails.
They really do. Yeah. I mean, they really, really do. And so that's wonderful. That's a great amenity that a lot of communities don't have.
We're speaking with Mayor Bob Morgan on Ask the Mayor today. We'll have more in a moment. This is Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. It's not before the council yet, but soon to come there. A TIF project of Kinney Holdings, which operates Precise Fabrication. We went through a pandemic period where you didn't see a lot of companies expanding, doing much growing. It was just that kind of characteristic of that time. But manufacturing seems to, in a lot of areas of the country, be making a good comeback. We've seen the Akuma project is underway. This one, getting ready. This is going to be a nice project.
This is a wonderful project. It really is. It's going to, enhance our, it's definitely going to enhance our industrial park. Kinney Holdings and, when they bought Precise Fab, have really embraced coming to the community and doing some great things. I know he's got some interests in a number of issues that affect labor, such as childcare and those type of things. And as he expands, I think you'll see some opportunities that he's trying to solve some of those issues as well. So, we're very, very happy to have them in this community and this expansion.
Under TIF, you always kind of consider, okay, what's the value of the land now? What will the value of the land and the property be in the future? And we're talking about a multi-million-dollar difference here through the use of TIF.
Right.
Yeah.
We are. So. And so, I think it's a great program. It really helps the people that want to expand. I mean, having Akuma, who's been a long time manufacturing business, it was a great opportunity to help support them. Kinney Holdings, which Precise Fab has been around for a long time, and they've embraced and really helped the community in their expansion. So it's two great opportunities.
I know you can't spill the beans on projects that may be in the works and are early in the negotiation stage, but are there others out there, do you think, that are going to show up in this next year or two that you had contact with, or maybe Engage has had contact with?
Well, Engage is out there actively, looking and pursuing. I think they've got a number of projects in the hopper. But again, one thing about economic development and bringing industry in, it becomes almost a game of long ball, because it does take a while for them to decide that they want to come. So with purchasing the land that expands the industrial park, I think that gives us just more opportunity to go out and find somebody that would like to come to Beatrice. It'll be interesting to see when we have the one company that's tied into Bitcoin coming in. That's certainly another market that could expand. And so I think manufacturing is going to look a lot brighter than what it did through the virus period.
Okay. Any update on the water main project? I know they got the cones up and traffic kind of moved over to the north side of Court Street there, but how's that going?
Right, we keep moving forward. It's kind of not a great opportunity to have everything torn up, but it's a great opportunity to replace the old lines. We'll be venturing into the downtown in the near future, and then that'll be a little even tighter as we try to figure out how to route traffic there. So, matter of fact, I think on Monday I have a meeting to talk about how do we want to really, ease the pain of going through the downtown as we do the water mains. But again, as I've said, now's the time to do it. It's 0% money, and quite honestly, at the end of the day, those water pipes that are in there now are very old.
Yeah. If they're 110 years old, it's kind of like driving an old car for 200,000 miles.
It is.
When is it going to give out?
And when is it going to give out? It is that important question is, that happens on December 23rd, and it's cold out, and you've got a pretty good rush of customers for Christmas. You certainly don't want to be without water.
And I've always kind of water crews, when they go out in all kinds of weather and do that work when it has to be done, you got to feel for those people, because that is not easy, I'm sure.
It is not easy, and it's cold, and it's never at a convenient time. Yeah. Everybody
remembers the big kind of explosion at 4th and Grant there, where they had the big water pipe break there, and that was kind of along this same order. The same type of main, so that's kind of an example of what can happen.
It can happen, and it just happens. It happens in a hurry, and we don't want to go through that again. I mean, our water department has done an awesome job of keeping everything running and up to date, and some of the equipment's 60, 70 years old. In this case, the pipes are 110 years old. I think Steve Kelly and his crew have really done a really good job of keeping our city and having water, which is a very important part of our lives.
Yeah. Some communities, too, with the drought, they're kind of struggling with, will they have enough?
Absolutely.
Have to put in place restrictions and things like that.
Absolutely. There's some that, you see it all the time where you can only water X number of days out of the week, start rationing water. I can tell you that with our expansion of 2 wells, we're sitting in a really good spot for water, and that's important to the community.
All right. Back with more to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment. We're back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan today. Had a question during the break. The work session in August on fireworks, they wondered, is that open to the public and where it'll be located?
Absolutely. It is definitely open to the public. We always have our council meetings and our work sessions at the Beatrice Public Schools District Administration Office and in the big conference room. So, yes.
That is 6 o'clock, right ahead of the council
6 o'clock ahead of the council meeting.
How do you think that's going to work? You had some people were wondering on the council, will that leave enough time if you have an issue that takes a lot of discussion, but,
Well, in some respects, I think we had the first one. And it worked really, really well.
Yeah.
Typically, work sessions you're typically around an hour. I'll put a plug in for the work session that we've got coming up on the 7th. Is it 17th? I'm trying to think when.
I think so, yeah. That's right.
So we do have one where we're going to do updates from our committees, our 3 committees, and then I think it's important, and they've agreed to come in, is the Pinpoint fiber folks. And they're going to talk a little bit about the process that they're going through because, they do have to dig through city right-of-way that happens to be, on property of people. So I think it's important that we understand fiber. Fiber's it's going to be a great asset to the community. We're glad that they're here, but we also want people to be aware of some of the pain that happens as you put in new infrastructure.
Is the concern just mainly restoring things back to the way it is, and that's simply it?
It is. I mean, it really is because we have, we've got a beautiful town, and a number of people have got beautiful yards, and it does impact that.
Okay.
And but in the long run, it's going to be a great asset for the community to bring in that fiber internet service.
The city included, you'll have faster speed between your facilities and departments too.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. It's going to be a great opportunity.
Okay. Budget consideration. Your fiscal year begins October 1st. You're in the process of putting together a new 2-year budget. What's the latest in the schedule on that? So.
Well, we'll certainly, it's hard to believe that it's already July 5th. But, we'll start discussing that at the council level in August, certainly. And, the department heads have, I think, done a really good job of getting what they see as their capital projects. I think Tobias and the department heads are trying to forecast their bigger capital projects out for it's either 5 or 7 years. I think that's important. We need to know, we want to be fiscally responsible, and if you plan that out, you can kind of take a look at where maybe the money will come from. It will be. What is it? I think it's August 15th is when we finally find out how the impact on property valuations happen. I don't think it's any secret that anybody who owns property has got the little yellow postcard. Yeah. And certainly property valuation went up. And, that is set by, the county assessor. And so I think the filing of protests is over, but they'll have a number of protests that they'll deal with. And so we'll get that final property valuation. I think it's right around that August 15th. And then we take a look and see how that matches up with our budget.
Yeah. One thing I've heard repeatedly ever since everyone knew the valuations were going up, especially residential and commercial, but also ag. Of course, it's all dependent on sales of property, and that's the system we have in Nebraska. But the question I get, or the comment you hear quite often is, well, if the valuations are going up that high, shouldn't you be able to lower your tax rate? Because if you leave it the same, you're earning a lot more in total tax revenue from the property side. On the other hand, there are people that say that, hey, we're coming off a year when we had 7 to 8% inflation at one point. The cost of things goes up. I don't remember the last time insurance ever went down of any kind. And there's other things, though, too. So, you have to kind of factor all that in as to where do you arrive at a tax rate, I guess.
Right. I think you got to take a look at, for us, one of the things that hit us hard, as we've talked about, we've had to raise our salaries for our police department. They work really hard, and if you look across the country, that's just happened in our area and across the country. Is that law enforcement needed to get some pay raises, and so you've got that's in there. You've got other labor costs that are on the rise. Inflation impacts all of our employees, so we want to be fair to them as well. And then you also just have the cost of doing business. Like you said, insurance goes up, equipment. I mean, when you look at a new truck for whether it's the fire department or whether it's for electric company, that could be $500,000. And 3 years ago, it might have been 250 or 300,000. So we'll do our best to be prudent with taxpayer money, because that's what we're obligated to do, and see how things start shaping up in August.
Having sales tax as a second revenue source, and it's been reasonably healthy given, the pandemic and conditions. Of course, the cost of things going up, that affects sales tax
Right.
too. Does that soften the blow for you as a local government in terms of, where you set your property tax rate at all?
Certainly helps. Absolutely. I mean, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to, be as fiscally responsible as we can as we move through that. And, yeah.
In the time we have left, did want to talk about just recently here at the county board level, every once in a while there are applications for lodging tax revenue, visitor improvements, things that draw people to town. A couple of things that got approval here just recently of the board are two things that will affect the city. One is the kind of renovation of ball fields, the arranging of ball fields at Hannibal Park.
Right.
And the other one was replacing scoreboards in the municipal auditorium that are, I didn't realize they were put in back in the 70s, 60s.
Yeah, probably.
Then you got a shot clock to account for here pretty soon. So
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of nice that an extra source of revenue for those
You know what?
projects.
It's wonderful. We're glad that we got those grants from the Gage County Tourism and Visitor Improvement Grants. It's amazing how things have changed, especially in the scoreboard world.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it used to be just a clock on the wall, and you had 4 15-minute
And it had
quarters.
that hand going around too.
Had the
For
hand
some
going
people, I can
around.
remember.
Sometimes you even had to flip the cards over for the scores when you were for the smaller basketball players. But the scoreboard has become a very important part of the game of basketball, and each year different requirements are met. Going back to my days at Southeast Community College. There was something ribbon we didn't have that lit up, I think, where the 30-second shot clock expired. And so we were trying to get that in, but I remember for the women's, for every women's game, they started off having a 2-shot technical foul against us because we hadn't had that in. And so, Lynn, as the coach, was going, when are we going to get that in? The parts are kind of like the splash pad.
Is that the thing around the backboard that had to go on?
And it had to be tied into the shot clock or something exactly. But, I know that for one complete season, there were technical fouls. So it does affect play.
Yeah.
And they're not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people may say, well, why at the auditorium? But you look at some of the things that go on there, and you look at the Mudecas tournament each
Right.
year, how many teams that brings in from the region and fans to the community. So that facility, just in that alone, it gets quite a bit of use.
It does.
That,
It really does. And it's just the right place to be with a new scoreboard.
The Hannibal Park, the rearrangements, it's going to be, as I understand, involve kind of relocation of at least 1 or 2 fields, but also access in between them too.
Right.
The goal is what? Just to make it a little smoother in and out of the area?
Smoother in and out, the more you spread things out, the less chance, a little more safety that you have, and just make it, again, it's a wonderful complex, and we're just doing little things to improve it even more.
A lot of tournaments, a lot of,
my.
The neat thing about it as far as the lodging tax is that people come into town and they pay that tax, and they may obviously don't even live here, and they pay that tax, but the money then goes back into projects that have the capability of drawing even more people into town.
Absolutely, and every community that's got hotels and motels has that lodging tax, and it's I think about we've almost become the mecca of small baseball team tournaments and softball tournaments from, it's amazing. Again, hats off to the Parks Department because they're busy from, the end of May until about August before school starts with tournaments. Yeah. And that brings a lot of people to town.
Yeah. When I travel to some place and stay somewhere too, and Do you ever look at the lodging tax on your bill, or does it really?
Yeah,
You probably
I do. But
probably your role in government here prompts you to do that. But I think most people, you see the overall bill.
right.
You maybe
Yeah.
don't break it down to something that
Right.
detailed.
No,
So.
and if you've got family or you're traveling and going on vacation, you're not going to shop around to a community to find who's got a little lower tax, lodging tax.
By a cent
but,
or a half
you're going to
cent,
stay there. But I do just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
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 So
I guess I'm one of those that don't. Just look at the
well,
bill.
it doesn't do any good.
Yeah, that's true. You're going to pay it one
You
way
can
or the
complain
other.
all you want, and they're going to
Yeah.
say, "Sorry, we still want our money."
Yeah. They'll say, "Hey, there's another motel down the road." if
That's
you wanna-
right.
And they charge the same tax. So.
That's exactly right.
Any word on the waiting for a piece of equipment to try to open up the Sertoma Astro Park splash pad? I know that's been kind of a wait and see thing. And
It's still, we're still on the waiting, and we're still trying to see it. Yeah.
and any update on when it might arrive? Or
Not that I know of. I haven't, again, one of the things I try to make sure that I do is the council and the mayor are more into the oversight than management and micromanagement. So I'm sure it will get here when hopefully it's soon, and it'd be nice to know what really happened with the old one. But things wear out, obsolescence is there, and so hopefully it'll be here soon.
Well, if it gets here soon, maybe we'll have a real late summer and it'll remain warm and
That's
you'll
right.
pick up some of those lost weeks. Who
That's
knows?
exactly right. That's what we hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mayor, thanks for being with us again.
You betcha. Thank you.